What is your brand? What are you bringing to the table? So know your brand, celebrate your brand, and never compromise on your brand. Hi, and welcome to Helping You Perform. I'm your host, Paul Teasdale. Over a career working with high-performing teams from across the globe, including 7 years working with Formula One team McLaren, I've learned a lot about what it takes to drive results. In this weekly podcast series, I'm going to be bringing you tips, tricks, and insights from the world of Formula One that you can apply for your organisation for your own high performance. Enjoy. Hi everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Helping You Perform podcast series, where I bring my tips, tricks, insights and stories from the world of Formula One to help you accelerate your own performance. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode 29, which is all about competitiveness, how to identify and nurture positive competitiveness, and also how to identify and nip in the bud those negative aspects and traits as well. In this week's episode, I want to talk about brand. Now, I've had lots of conversations recently about brand, and particularly about what did I learn from McLaren, such a world-class brand. What were the things that I learned about brand in those 7 years that I worked there? Well, one of the things that was abundantly clear when I first came into McLaren was McLaren is the brand. It's the history, it's the story, it's the DNA about the sport and the passion for Formula One all the way through everything that they do. Even when those aspects aren't to do with Formula One, they are linked back to that story as well. So there's three key elements that I learned that I was reflecting on recently. One of them is about knowing your brand. The second is about celebrating your brand. And the third, and probably the most important, is about never compromising your brand. So let's go through those one by one. So knowing your brand is about knowing your story. It's about knowing what you are, knowing who you are, or who you want to be. It's about knowing those things that tie in why these things are important to you. And it's also about knowing what that looks and feels like. You know, is your brand high performance? Is it about elegance? Is it about that sort of rough and ready, we just get things done? What does that look and feel like when we talk about your brand? Is it about comfort? You know, have you got a brand in maybe a luxury chocolate? So your brand is all about comfort and elegance. Whatever that might be, know what your brand looks and feels like and reflect that in everything you do. It's also about knowing the antithesis of that. What does your brand not look like? What are those things that say, actually, that is definitely against our brand? And one of the things I learned early on in McLaren, it's the little details. Those are the things that really were intrinsic in that brand. Such things as it gets to the end of a meeting, everybody's had maybe drinks, maybe snacks, they've had pens and paper out on the table. Before you leave that room, you put the chairs in, you make sure they're even, you tidy up the paper, you tidy up any mess. Even if that's not your job, in inverted commas, to do, part of your role is to be that brand ambassador in that moment and to show that the little details and the quality of your workmanship counts. And that would be the same for the antithesis. You know, if you left a meeting and you left a client meeting and where you were sitting was really untidy, or you walked past some rubbish lying on the floor that you could easily tidy up, instead of saying, "Nope, that's somebody else's job. You know, I've got other things to do. I'm busy." Part of your job, and a major part of your job, is to show and demonstrate to that brand, those brand ambassadors and the people who are seeing your brand, that actually this is what matters to you and your business. So that's all about knowing your brand, what it is, what it isn't. Next is about celebrating your brand. Finding all of those opportunities to say, this is what we're all about. Oh, isn't this amazing? Let's connect with the right people. Let's have sponsor partners or partners who match up to the kind of things that we're trying to do. Even if they're in completely different fields, the way they go about it really ties in with how McLaren want to go about it, or how we as a business want to go about it. Now, that can be two very different look and feel brands, but they can have a common thread. And so that's all about understanding that common thread and identifying that and say, yes, we're from two different fields, but we've got this in common, and that really matters to us. So let's celebrate that. And then the final thing is about never compromising. It's about identifying those situations where you say, this is something where we could compromise on this story. We could take maybe a cheaper option, or we could do this in a quicker way that didn't get the perfection that we're after. Or it might be something that says, we're going to accept a level of quality from our customers, from our suppliers, or even the level of quality that we're pushing out. What are we willing to not accept? What are we going to say, no, that doesn't even go out the door. That doesn't even get passed internally because that doesn't match with the brand that we're trying to portray. So I want you to think about those three areas for your brand, no matter how big or small you are. If you're a solopreneur, if you're a medium-sized business, if you're just a small mom and pop situation, or if you're part of a multinational, your team, your department, your region, what is your brand? What are you bringing to the table? So know your brand, celebrate your brand, and never compromise on your brand. If you want to talk about any of this, as always, please do get in touch via paulteasdale.co.uk. Drop me a line. You'll see the pop-up box come up. Set up a free 30-minute chat with me. I'd love to hear your stories. Love to hear how this is helping you accelerate your own performance. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Helping You Perform podcast. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to like, share, or review the podcast. You can reach out to me at any time, either through LinkedIn or through my website at www.paulteasdale.co.uk. I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.